Marcus was broke and about to lose his home with his young daughter Emma. He took a risky job protecting a rich CEO from her crazy ex-boyfriend. When the man tried to shoot her, Marcus jumped in front of the bullet. This one brave act changed their lives forever. Before watching full story, comment below from where you watching. Also like and subscribe for more stories. Marcus Thompson's hands trembled as he stared at the eviction notice taped to his apartment door. 30 days. That's all he had left before he and his 8-year-old daughter Emma would be homeless. The single father had been struggling ever since losing his construction job 3 months ago, and his savings had finally run dry. "Daddy, what's that paper?" Emma asked, tugging at his worn jacket as she returned from school. Marcus quickly crumpled the notice and forced a smile. "Nothing important, sweetheart. Let's go inside." Their small apartment felt even smaller with the weight of their problems pressing down on them. Emma's school supplies were scattered across the kitchen table where she did her homework each night, and Marcus noticed how her shoes were starting to wear thin at the soles. She never complained, never asked for anything, but he could see the questions in her bright blue eyes when other kids talked about their weekend trips or new toys. That evening, as Emma slept peacefully in her bed, Marcus sat at his laptop scrolling through job listings. Most required skills he didn't have or paid too little to cover their basic expenses. His phone buzzed with another overdue bill notice, and he felt the familiar knot of anxiety tighten in his chest. The next morning brought no relief. Marcus dropped Emma off at school and headed to the employment office, where he waited in line with dozens of other desperate job seekers. The counselor, Ms. Rodriguez, looked at his application with sympathy. "I have something," she said slowly. "It's security work for corporate events. The pay is decent, but it's dangerous. You'd be protecting high-profile executives who sometimes receive threats." Marcus didn't hesitate. "I'll take it." 3 days later, Marcus found himself standing outside the Grand Metropolitan Hotel, wearing a rented security uniform that didn't quite fit. His assignment was to protect Victoria Sterling, the 32-year-old CEO of Sterling Industries, during a charity gala. She was known for her brilliant business mind and her generous philanthropy, but also for her turbulent personal life. As Marcus reviewed the security briefing, his supervisor, Captain Hayes, pulled him aside. "Listen, Thompson, this one's complicated. Miss Sterling's ex-boyfriend, Derek Mansion, has been making threats. He's the son of a rival business family, and their breakup got ugly. He's been harassing her for months, and we have reason to believe he might try something tonight." Marcus nodded grimly. "What kind of threats?" "The usual jealous ex stuff, but escalated. He's been telling people she belongs to him, that if he can't have her, no one can. Classic possessive behavior, but with the resources to back it up. The Mansion family has connections everywhere." The gala was in full swing by evening. Marcus positioned himself near the main entrance, watching the crowd of wealthy donors and business leaders. Victoria Sterling commanded attention the moment she entered. She was elegant in a midnight blue dress, her auburn hair swept up in a sophisticated style, but Marcus could see the tension in her shoulders, the way her eyes scanned the room nervously. As the evening progressed, Marcus noticed a disturbance near the bar. Derek Mansion had arrived despite not being on the guest list. He was a tall, imposing man in his 30s, with the kind of arrogant swagger that came from never being told no. 2 security guards were trying to escort him out, but he was causing a scene. "Where is she?" Derek shouted, his voice slurred with alcohol. "Victoria. You can't hide from me forever." Marcus moved quickly through the crowd, reaching Victoria just as Derek spotted her across the room. Her face went pale and she instinctively stepped closer to Marcus. "He's not supposed to be here," she whispered, her voice shaking slightly. "Don't worry, ma'am. We'll handle this," Marcus assured her, speaking into his radio to coordinate with other security personnel. But Derek was already pushing through the crowd, his face twisted with rage and desperation. "Victoria. We need to talk. You can't just throw away what we had." "Please leave, Derek," Victoria said firmly, though Marcus could hear the fear beneath her composed exterior. "You're making a scene." "A scene?" Derek laughed bitterly. "You destroyed my life and you're worried about a scene? You led me on for months, made me think we had a future, and then you threw me away like garbage." The crowd was beginning to stare, phones coming out to record the confrontation. Marcus stepped between Derek and Victoria, his hand moving instinctively toward his radio. "Sir, I'm going to need you to leave the premises immediately," Marcus said in a calm but firm voice. Derek's eyes flicked to Marcus with contempt. "And who are you? Another one of her bodyguards? How many men does she need to feel safe from the truth?" "I'm asking you nicely to leave," Marcus repeated. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. The truth is, Derek continued, ignoring Marcus and focusing on Victoria, you're nothing without your daddy's money. You think you're so high and mighty, but you're just a spoiled little girl playing at being a businesswoman. Victoria's composure finally cracked. Get out, Derek. Just get out and leave me alone. That's when Marcus saw it. The flash of something metallic in Derek's jacket. His military training kicked in and time seemed to slow down. Derek was reaching for a gun, his face twisted with the kind of desperate rage that made men do unthinkable things. Gun! Marcus shouted, throwing himself between Derek and Victoria just as the weapon cleared Derek's jacket. The gunshot echoed through the hotel ballroom like thunder. Screams erupted from the crowd as people scattered in panic, but Marcus felt only the burning sensation in his shoulder as the bullet tore through his body. He stayed on his feet long enough to tackle Derek, using his good arm to wrestle the gun away before collapsing to the marble floor. Marcus. Victoria's voice seemed to come from far away as she knelt beside him, her elegant dress now stained with his blood. Someone call an ambulance. Through the haze of pain and shock, Marcus could hear the chaos around him. Security guards were restraining Derek, who was screaming incoherently about how it wasn't supposed to happen like this. Hotel staff were trying to control the panicking crowd, and somewhere in the distance, sirens were already approaching. My daughter, Marcus whispered, grabbing Victoria's hand with surprising strength. Emma. If something happens to me? Nothing's going to happen to you, Victoria said fiercely, tears streaming down her face. You're going to be fine. The paramedics are almost here. But Marcus was thinking about the eviction notice, about Emma waiting at home with the neighbor who babysat her on his work nights. What would happen to her if he didn't make it? Who would take care of her? Promise me, he gasped, his vision starting to blur. If I don't make it, promise me you'll make sure Emma is okay. She's only 8. She has no one else. Victoria squeezed his hand tighter. You're going to be fine. You're going to take care of her yourself. The paramedics arrived then, professional and efficient as they worked to stabilize Marcus. Through the fog of pain medication, he heard fragments of conversation. Words like, through and through, no major arteries, and lucky to be alive. As they loaded him onto the stretcher, Marcus caught sight of Derek being led away in handcuffs. The man who had seemed so dangerous and powerful just minutes ago now looked pathetic and broken, the reality of what he'd done finally sinking in. Thank you, Victoria whispered as the paramedics prepared to take Marcus to the hospital. Thank you for saving my life. Marcus tried to respond, but the medication was pulling him under. His last conscious thought was of Emma, hoping she was safe at home, unaware that her father had just risked everything to save a stranger. Marcus woke up 2 days later in a private hospital room he definitely couldn't afford. Sunlight streamed through large windows, and there were flowers everywhere. More flowers than he'd ever seen in one place. But what surprised him most was seeing Victoria Sterling sitting in a chair beside his bed, looking like she hadn't slept in days. You're awake, she said softly, immediately reaching for the call button. The doctors said you might wake up today. My daughter? Marcus croaked, his throat dry. Emma. Where is she? She's safe, Victoria assured him quickly. I've been taking care of everything. She's staying with a lovely family friend of mine, and she's been asking about you constantly. I told her you were a hero who saved someone, and that you're going to be just fine. Marcus tried to sit up and winced at the pain in his shoulder. I can't afford this room. The medical bills. Don't worry about that, Victoria said firmly. Everything is taken care of. You saved my life, Marcus. The least I can do is make sure you recover properly. Over the next few days, as Marcus grew stronger, Victoria visited regularly. She brought Emma to see him, and watching his daughter's face light up when she saw he was okay made all the pain worth it. Emma was full of stories about her stay with Victoria's friend Mrs. Chin, who apparently made the best pancakes in the world and had a garden full of butterflies. Daddy, the nice lady says you're a hero, Emma said, climbing carefully onto his hospital bed. She says you saved her from a bad man. Marcus looked at Victoria, who was watching them with an expression he couldn't quite read. I just did my job, sweetheart. Heroes always say that in movies, Emma giggled. But Mrs. Chin says real heroes don't wear capes. They just do the right thing when it's scary. Victoria smiled at that. Mrs. Chin sounds very wise. As Marcus recovered, he learned more about the woman he'd saved. Victoria visited every day, sometimes bringing work to do while he rested, other times just sitting and talking. He discovered that beneath the polished exterior of a successful CEO was someone who had struggled with loneliness and the pressure of living up to impossible expectations. "I built my whole life around the company," she admitted one afternoon. "I thought that if I could just be successful enough, smart enough, tough enough, then I'd finally feel worthy of the sterling name. But it's exhausting being perfect all the time." "Nobody's perfect," Marcus said. "I lost my job, couldn't pay my bills, almost lost my apartment. Emma deserves so much better than what I can give her." Victoria was quiet for a moment. "She adores you. Anyone can see that. And you jumped in front of a bullet for a stranger. That's not the action of someone who doesn't deserve good things." On Marcus's last day in the hospital, Victoria arrived with a serious expression and a manila folder in her hands. "I have a proposition for you," she said, sitting down in what had become her usual chair. "I've been thinking about this for days and I know it might sound crazy, but I want you to hear me out." Marcus nodded, curious about her sudden nervousness. "I need a head of personal security," she continued. "Someone I can trust completely. Someone who's already proven they'll put their life on the line for me. The pay is excellent, there are full benefits for you and Emma, and it comes with a house. A real house with a yard and good schools nearby." Marcus stared at her. "Victoria, that's incredibly generous, but I'm just a construction worker who took a security job. I'm not qualified to run your security detail." "You have military training," she pointed out. "Captain Hayes told me you served 2 tours overseas. And more importantly, you have something that can't be taught, integrity. I've had security teams before, Marcus. Professional, expensive, well-trained security teams. But when the moment came, you were the one who stepped in front of a bullet." She opened the folder and showed him the job description and salary. The numbers made Marcus's head spin. It was more than he'd ever dreamed of making. "Why are you doing this?" he asked quietly. "This is about more than just gratitude." Victoria was quiet for a long moment. "Because I've spent my whole life surrounded by people who want something from me. My money, my influence, my connections. Even Derek, I realize now that he never loved me. He loved the idea of controlling me, of being the man who tamed Victoria Sterling. But you asked for nothing. Even when you were bleeding on the floor, you only asked me to take care of Emma." She paused, looking out the window. "I want to offer you this job because I trust you. And because maybe, if you're watching out for me, I can finally stop being afraid." Marcus thought about Emma, about the eviction notice that was probably still crumpled in his jacket pocket, about all the nights he'd stayed awake worrying about their future. "I accept," he said simply. Victoria's smile was radiant. "Emma's going to love the house. It has a swing set in the backyard." Moving into their new home felt like stepping into someone else's dream. The house was a beautiful colonial in an upscale neighborhood, with a white picket fence and exactly the kind of swing set Victoria had promised. Emma ran from room to room, marveling at having her own bathroom and a walk-in closet bigger than their old kitchen. "Daddy, is this really ours?" she asked for the 10th time, bouncing on her new bed. "It's really ours, sweetheart," Marcus confirmed, though he was still having trouble believing it himself. His new job came with challenges he hadn't expected. It wasn't just about physical protection, though that was certainly part of it. Derek Mansion had been sentenced to 5 years in prison for assault with a deadly weapon, but his family was wealthy and influential. There were concerns about retaliation, about hired help, about the kind of revenge that money could buy. But beyond the external threats, Marcus found himself dealing with Victoria's emotional recovery. The shooting had shaken her more than she wanted to admit. She had trouble sleeping, jumped at unexpected sounds, and sometimes had panic attacks during business meetings. "I used to be fearless," she told him one evening as they reviewed security protocols in her home office. "I'd walk into boardrooms full of men twice my age and dominate the conversation. Now I'm afraid of shadows." "That's normal," Marcus assured her. "You went through a traumatic experience. It takes time to feel safe again." "How long?" she asked. "How long before I stop seeing Derek's face every time someone raises their voice? How long before I can go to a public event without checking every exit?" Marcus considered his words carefully. "I still have nightmares about Afghanistan sometimes, and that was years ago. Trauma doesn't follow a schedule. But it does get easier, especially when you have people around you who care." Victoria looked at him with an expression he was beginning to recognize, gratitude mixed with something deeper, something that made his heart race in a way that had nothing to do with danger. As the months passed, the professional relationship between Marcus and Victoria began to evolve into something more personal. It started small, Victoria joining them for Emma's soccer games, Marcus staying for dinner when work ran late, family movie nights that felt surprisingly natural. Emma adored Victoria, who treated her with the kind of attention and respect that made the little girl bloom with confidence. Victoria helped with homework, attended school plays, and even learned to braid Emma's hair for dance recitals. "She's like a mom," Emma confided to Marcus one night as he tucked her into bed. "But prettier, and she smells like flowers." Marcus felt his heart skip. "Victoria is my boss. She's been very kind to us, but we can't assume." "She loves us, Daddy," Emma interrupted with the matter-of-fact certainty that only children possess. "I can tell. She gets the same happy look you do when we're all together." Could it be that simple? Marcus found himself paying closer attention to Victoria's behavior, looking for signs that Emma might be right. The way Victoria's face lit up when they walked into a room. How she always seemed to find excuses to spend time with them. The lingering looks they shared over Emma's head during family dinners. One evening, as they sat on the back porch watching Emma chase fireflies in the yard, Victoria brought up the subject that had been hanging between them for weeks. "Marcus, can I ask you something personal?" "Of course. Do you ever think about dating again? I mean, Emma's mother has been gone for 3 years now. You must get lonely." Marcus was quiet for a moment, watching his daughter's joyful pursuit of the glowing insects. "Sometimes. But it's complicated with Emma. She's been hurt enough. I can't bring someone into her life unless I'm absolutely sure they're going to stay." "What if you were sure?" Victoria asked softly. Marcus turned to look at her, and in the soft light of the porch lamp, he saw his own feelings reflected in her eyes. "Victoria, I know it's complicated," she said quickly. "I know there are a dozen reasons why this could be a terrible idea. The job, the difference in our backgrounds, the fact that we met under traumatic circumstances. But Marcus, I've never felt this safe with anyone. This happy. This complete." Emma came running up to the porch then, a mason jar full of fireflies in her hands. "Look, I caught them. Can we keep them?" "We have to let them go, sweetheart," Marcus said gently. "They need to be free to fly." Emma looked disappointed but nodded and unscrewed the jar, watching as the fireflies escaped back into the night sky. "At least we got to enjoy them while they were here." Victoria caught Marcus's eye and smiled. Sometimes the most beautiful things come when you're not looking for them. Their growing happiness was shattered on a Tuesday morning when Captain Hayes called with disturbing news. Derek Mansion had been released from prison early on good behavior, and intelligence suggested he was planning something. "He's been quiet since his release 2 weeks ago," Hayes explained during an emergency meeting at Victoria's office. "Too quiet. We know he's been asking questions about Miss Sterling's routines, her security detail, her personal life." Marcus felt ice in his veins. "What kind of questions?" "The kind that suggest he's planning another attempt. He's obsessed, Thompson. Prison didn't cure him. It just gave him time to plan." Victoria went pale. "But the restraining order means nothing to someone who's already proven he'll use violence," Marcus finished grimly. "We need to increase security immediately. Change your routines, avoid predictable patterns." For the next 2 weeks they lived in a state of heightened alert. Marcus coordinated with local police, installed additional security systems, and rarely let Victoria out of his sight. The stress was taking its toll on all of them. Victoria was having nightmares again, Emma sensed the tension and became clingy, and Marcus felt like he was constantly looking over his shoulder. The attack came, ironically, during the one moment when they'd finally begun to relax. Emma had a school carnival, and after much debate they decided to attend. The school had its own security, there would be plenty of people around, and Emma had been looking forward to it for weeks. They couldn't let Derek's threats steal every moment of normalcy from their lives. The carnival was in full swing when Marcus spotted him. Derek was standing near the entrance, wearing a baseball cap and sunglasses, trying to blend in with the other parents. But Marcus recognized the way he moved, the predatory focus as his eyes scanned the crowd. "Take Emma to the car," Marcus told Victoria quietly, never taking his eyes off Derek. "Call the police." "What about you?" Victoria asked, fear evident in her voice. "I'll handle Derek. Just get Emma somewhere safe." But Emma had already spotted the man who had hurt her father. With the quick intuition of children, she recognized danger even without understanding the full context. "That's the bad man," she whispered, pressing close to Victoria. "That's the one who shot Daddy." Derek must have been watching them, because the moment Victoria started moving toward the parking lot with Emma, he began following. Marcus paralleled his path, speaking quietly into his radio to alert security while trying to intercept Derek before he could reach Victoria and Emma. The confrontation happened near the school's parking lot, away from the crowds of families enjoying the carnival. Derek had something in his hand, not a gun this time but a knife, which somehow seemed even more personal, more intimate in its threat. "I just want to talk to her," Derek said when Marcus stepped into his path. "She owes me that much." "She owes you nothing," Marcus replied, his voice steady despite the adrenaline flooding his system. "You had your chance to walk away. You chose prison instead." Derek's laugh was bitter and desperate. "Prison gave me time to think. Time to realize what she took from me. My reputation, my standing in the community, my future. She destroyed my life." "You destroyed your own life when you decided to threaten an innocent woman." "Innocent?" Derek's grip tightened on the knife. "She's a manipulator. She made me fall in love with her and then threw me away like garbage. She deserves to know what that feels like." Marcus could see Victoria in his peripheral vision, fumbling with her phone as she tried to get Emma into the car. They were too far away for him to protect them if Derek got past him. "It's over, Derek. The police are on their way. Don't make this worse for yourself." "Worse?" Derek stepped closer, and Marcus could see the wild desperation in his eyes. "How could it possibly get worse? I've lost everything. My family disowned me, my friends won't return my calls, I can't get a job because everyone knows what happened. She took everything from me." "You did that yourself," Marcus said firmly. "Every choice you made led to this moment. Victoria didn't force you to stalk her, to threaten her, to bring a gun to a public place. Those were your choices. And this is my choice too," Derek said, raising the knife. The fight was brief but vicious. Derek was desperate and armed, but Marcus had training and purpose. More importantly, he was fighting not just for Victoria, but for the life they were building together, for Emma's future, for everything that mattered. Marcus managed to disarm Derek, but not before taking a slash across his ribs that burned like fire. They grappled on the asphalt, Derek screaming incoherently about love and betrayal while Marcus focused on keeping the knife away from both of them. It ended when Derek's head hit the concrete with a sickening crack. He went limp instantly, blood pooling beneath him as sirens wailed in the distance. Marcus knelt beside Derek's unconscious form, applying pressure to the head wound despite everything the man had put them through. When the paramedics arrived, they worked frantically to stabilize Derek while police took Marcus's statement. "Is he going to make it?" Marcus asked one of the paramedics. "Hard to say. Severe head trauma. He'll need surgery." Victoria and Emma were both crying when they finally reached Marcus. Emma threw her arms around his waist, careful of his bandaged ribs, while Victoria held them both. "It's over," Marcus said quietly. "It's finally over." Derek Mansion survived his injuries but suffered permanent brain damage that left him unable to care for himself. His family, finally seeing the extent of his obsession and mental illness, had him committed to a long-term care facility. The knife attack resulted in additional charges, but Derek would never be capable of standing trial. "I almost feel sorry for him," Victoria admitted as they sat in the hospital waiting room while Marcus got his stitches checked. "He's sick," Marcus agreed. "But that doesn't excuse what he did. Mental illness doesn't give someone the right to hurt other people." Emma, who had been unusually quiet since the incident, finally spoke up. "Daddy, are you going to keep protecting Victoria forever?" Marcus and Victoria exchanged glances. They'd been avoiding the question that hung between them. What happened now that the threat was over? Would Marcus continue as her security chief? Would their personal relationship survive the transition away from the crisis that had brought them together? "What do you think, sweetheart?" Marcus asked. "Should I keep protecting Victoria?" Emma nodded solemnly. "She's part of our family now. Families protect each other." Victoria's eyes filled with tears. "Emma, I would love to be part of your family. But that's a big decision. It would mean a lot of changes." "Good changes?" Emma asked. "I think so," Victoria said, looking at Marcus. "But it would be up to your daddy." Marcus took Victoria's hand, marveling at how right it felt. "I think it's time I stopped being afraid of good things happening to us. Victoria, I love you. Not because you saved us from financial ruin, not because you gave us this beautiful life, but because you make us better. You make me want to be the man Emma thinks I am." Victoria was crying openly now. "I love you too. Both of you. I never thought I'd have a real family, but you've given me something I didn't even know I was missing." Emma grinned. "So when's the wedding?" The wedding was small and perfect, held in the backyard of their home with the swing set decorated in white ribbons and fairy lights. Emma served as both flower girl and ring bearer, taking her duties very seriously. Marcus still worked as Victoria's head of security, but the job had evolved. Sterling Industries had expanded its charitable work, and Marcus found himself coordinating security for schools, shelters, and community centers. It felt good to protect people who needed it most. Victoria had started a foundation focused on helping single parents facing financial crisis. Families like Marcus and Emma had been. She called it the Second Chances Foundation, and it had already helped dozens of families avoid homelessness. "Do you ever think about that night at the hotel?" Victoria asked as they slow danced at their reception, Emma spinning nearby with Mrs. Chen. "Every day," Marcus admitted. "But not because I regret it. Because it led us here. Sometimes the worst moments in our lives are actually doorways to the best ones." Victoria smiled and pulled him closer. "My true protector." "Always," Marcus promised and kissed his wife as their daughter laughed with pure joy and their future stretched out before them, bright and full of possibilities. In the end, Marcus had learned something invaluable. Sometimes being a hero isn't about grand gestures or dramatic rescues. Sometimes it's about choosing love over fear, hope over despair, and family over everything else. Sometimes it's about taking a bullet not just to save someone's life, but to save your own chance at happiness. And sometimes, when you're brave enough to protect someone else's dreams, you discover that you've been protecting your own all along.